Welcome to Millennials and Money. I'm Bill Wooditch, and to my right, maybe your left if you're looking at the screen the other way, it's Chris Zehnder. So say hello, Z-Man.
Good morning.
Today we're going to talk about something that's extremely important for anybody in sales, anyone in sales, and I think just in terms of life. And if we're going to go forward, we're going to get rejected. Oh man, that stings, doesn't it? Because see, emotion has that that feel that, oh wow, I think I'm less than. I feel like I'm unworthy. I feel like someone has really shut me down, turned me off. They don't like who I am, and I start to get back in the shadows. That's what rejection will do to your emotion. It hits that emotional button. Well, the other day, I'm sitting with Chris, and Chris has been on a virtual ascension forward as a top producer. And one of the requisite skill sets he brings to the table every day, that you have to bring to the table every day, is the desensitization. Try that one twice on Monday morning. Desensitization of feeling when it comes to rejection. So he came in my office last week and he said, I got a story for you. It was about 3:30, his sleeves were rolled up, he was smiling about it. He said, let me tell you the story. So I'm going to let him tell you the story of rejection that I frankly loved.
Well, before I go into the story, I want to talk about...
I'm going to reject what Bill just said.
Yeah, rejection, you have to anchor yourself on something other than your success. Because if you're anchored to your circumstances or what happens based on your day, then you're going to have... It could go up and down, but you're letting somebody else decide for you because they might be in a pissed off, terrible mood because it's Monday morning and nobody wants to come to work, or seemingly nobody does, and you call them at just the wrong time, and they're just they don't listen to you, they don't do anything, so they're not rejecting you, they're just in a bad mood, and the offer didn't appeal to them at that time. So before you don't want to anchor yourself to your calls, and you definitely don't want to anchor yourself to one call,
right,
or 10 calls or 100 calls. You have to be able to realize that you need to make thousands of calls before you're going to be successful, like tens of thousands. And so, okay, I'll tell the story now. But so from doing all this for the last 3 years, I have become a little bit desensitized to emotions and feelings, which my wife would probably tell you is a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing. And so I called this guy, CFO of a large construction company. Happened to get him on the phone. I've been calling him the last 3 years, so that's what I preface with. I've been calling you the last 3 years. I know you're busy. I know you get a lot of calls. He said, well, let me ask you a question. So I thought this was going in a positive direction. I was like, great. He said, if you've been calling me for the last 3 years and I've never called you back, why are you calling me? And I said, that's a very good question. And I was about to answer it with what I thought was an awesome answer. And before I got the chance, he said, Happy Easter, and he hung up on me. It was like Thursday or Friday last week. So, I called him right back, and I went directly to his line. I was hoping to get him on the phone. I guess he didn't take my call. He doesn't have thick skin like I do to take the call right after that. But I left him a voicemail, and I explained the reason I call him back is because if I'm not calling him every year, there's going to be a year when he gets pissed off about his broker, about service, about pricing, something. But there's going to be a time when he wants to shop it. And if I'm not calling him year after year, once a year, twice a year, 10 times a year until he says, stop calling me this year, then 10 years from now or 15 years from now, when he is ready to shop, when his broker retires, dies, does a terrible job, you name it, he's not going to know who I am if I haven't called him the last 10 years unsuccessfully.
Staying on the radar.
Although you don't want to piss anybody off those 10 years, which I'm not sure if I did or not, but hey.
All right, what are the key takeaways? Anchor. Do not anchor your feelings, your emotions to the external. Don't let someone else's mood affect yours where you're dragging up and down based on their moods. Have your own anchor of stability. Number two, he's dealing with these things. Chris is dealing with stuff as a professional. So his persistence as a professional has to go into this most important part. Here's my brain again. This is my brain after the weekend. It's all red up here, see, because it was a good weekend.
From the drinks.
Exactly, that's what it's from. But he wants to move up from this base of instinct, which is the first anger of the survival mode of instinct, up into this emotional feeling. And that emotion can either take us to a place where we enjoy, maybe on the home front with your wife, or a place where we just despise. Get away, I'm having a terrible day. But we need to get to the top part of the brain. See, the top part of the brain is where Chris is starting to think rationally. He pushed back. He didn't take it emotional. He didn't say, as I've done, hey, you son of a bitch, this is what I do for a living, and hang up on them. Because I've done that in my career. I've done that many times, and I was admiring what he did. He pushed back. He used the top part of his brain, stayed professional, and said, this is why, and this is why. Now, I gave him major kudos on that, because that's something that's beyond me. And this is, it's my network.
It was almost beyond me, but I said, you know what? Why make an enemy today?
Well, it's a good way to look at life, and it's a good philosophy, and I think that's part of the reason why you're able to go forward through those types of rejections. That's just part of the game. Man, it's just a game.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I think so.
So play it well.
Yeah.
So play it well.
Yeah, I guess so.
The floor is yours. The camera is yours. You want something different to say, but I had to get the rejection story out. So I know you got to say something else.
Last week I did promise that the 4 viewers out there that really want.
You got a lot of fans out there.
That really wanted to hear about. So I have my best friend works for a really large food distribution company. There's about a handful of them that are that big, but they have layers and layers of corporate executives that probably churn out this sales crap, and they come out with all these different features and benefits, online ordering, you name it. And my buddy his name's Jimmy, he was just talking to me about all these things that the corporate ladder is shoving down their throats to sell. And he said, he's like, nobody cares about that. And I said, well, that's the first problem. You have to figure out what your company does well and what the benefits are to the actual customers. And so I thought of a few ways that he could go about it, because he obviously wasn't getting help from the top. So I said, first way is you can go ask if you have customers, because they grandfathered him some customers. So he has a little, a client base. So go to them and ask them why they like US Foods. So you could, they're not going to be shy about telling you what they like and what they don't like. So at least you'll know, what you can possibly change if your company is malleable enough. And then you'll get an idea for what your benefits are. So when you actually do sell an account, which he was telling me about, and you can't deliver what you promised, then it's not a good fit in the first place.
It's a fracture of credibility.
Yeah.
And what Chris is talking about too is getting in front of that customer, actually breaking through the veil. Because so many times in large companies, all you're looking at is strategic vision, some kind of strategy in some ivory tower. Go out and do this, but the people in those ivory towers haven't shaken hands with real people that are customers in decades.
Yeah.
So you're out there getting the front line. Things are changing. Man, it's changing every day.
Yeah.
What was your next bit of advice to him?
So you can also ask a top earning producer or sales guy. Why not go directly to them and say, hey, actually go to a few of them, the top earning ones, the highest you can find.
Yes.
And then ask them, what did you do? And I can guarantee you that each one is going to have a slightly different spin on what they sell and what they do. And then you kind of take the benefits that they sell and you just mold them into your own style.
Because by asking those questions, what you're doing is using their experience and shortening the distance between where you are and where you are determined to go in the future. You're learning. It doesn't mean Chris is going to buy everything everyone tells him, but he's going to take that experience, learn from it, listen to what he thinks is of value, and apply it. But you got to get in there, talk with your customers, and talk with your top producers, your top earners. And that's something not a lot of people do. They stay sequestered, locked up in their own little cave, in their own little cubicle, in their own little office with their own little thoughts. Get out there, open the doors to the customer, and then talk with the top producers. There's a reason they're there. Success leaves clues.
I guarantee you they'll be happy that you came too. They're especially if you go to them and say, you're doing obviously a really good job. Do you mind giving me a few pointers, because I want to kind of go the direction that you've taken yourself.
Ego flattering works every time, especially with me.
Exactly. That's why I'm here today.
What's your third point?
I didn't type this.
You didn't? Who typed that for you?
No, I did type this.
You did? Are you sure that's yours?
Yes.
Is that your typing?
This
Those
is my typing.
letters, is that your typing?
No, the font's
in the court
different.
of law, I don't know. The font is
different.
not your kind of font, man. I don't know if you typed that.
Okay, so also I wanted to make sure that, because my buddy, my best friend, Jimmy, was going after smaller accounts that, this is $1 billion company, so they do Staples Center, gigantic accounts. And so he was going after little bakeries and mom and pop shops, because he thought it would be easier to get them as customers. So when you sell into these companies and they're not really a good fit for your company, it's going to be a lot more challenging to get them as customers. I know that when I go after a construction account, if it's a smaller company, it's going to be a lot harder to win than a gigantic account who all of the carriers want to write, and now there's the flexibility to change pricing and everything. So if you find out what companies, what types of accounts your company is targeting, and then just go after them. I don't care if you're brand new to it. You go after the biggest account on the block, and you just keep going for it.
Do not be intimidated. Great point. Do not be intimidated by size. Most of the time, in my findings, the smaller companies have less sophistication, less ability to grasp what you're talking about or perceive the value behind what you're talking about as the bigger ones do. Not necessarily, not always, but in most cases, people are afraid to go after those larger accounts, those larger clients, because they fear that they don't know enough, that the client's not going to get it. You know what? You'll work harder on the smaller ones than you ever will
They'll drain
on the
you.
bigger ones. That drain your time, they drain your energy, and you got to save a nickel to move the account.
$1,000 is going to be a huge
Yeah.
issue for them, so
Yeah.
they're going to complain It's just tougher. But yeah, you got to figure out what you're going to sell, and you got to. If you don't know what to say, if you don't know if you don't have the knowledge, figure it out. Like learn it, or bring somebody that does that'll go along with you and have the knowledge to be able to answer the questions.
And that's huge. You've got to take your knowledge with you. I have, during the course of my career, I know my limits, and they're great. But I'm always bringing people with product knowledge with me to address my deficiencies in whatever product knowledge I have. And Chris is doing the same thing. You want to bring your knowledge with you. There is nothing worse than sitting there saying, and let me get back to you is good about 2 or 3 times. But the
Yeah.
fourth time, let me get back to you sounds like you were just an ID10T. You just ain't getting it.
Mm-hmm. I like bringing somebody else with me because then I can.
You just want
preach.
carpool in California. You just
Yeah.
want carpool lane.
I can preach. Well, they're going to change it to 3 pretty soon, so but I can
Bring
preach.
your dog with you.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if that counts as a person, but
To you it does.
you never know. But yeah, so when you figure out these benefits, you're going to want to make the sales pitch completely oriented to what you learned, not what corporate's telling you. What you learn out in the field, what's actually working now, not what worked 10 years ago, but what's selling now because everything changes, times change, culture changes. It's not the 90s anymore, and you can't, I don't know. Did it ever work, the hard sell like they show on TV, where people are like calling them names and getting them to buy
It
stuff?
just sounded good in movies.
Yeah.
It sounded good in movies. Alec Baldwin did it really well. So did
So
did Gordon Gekko in Wall Street. It just sounded greed is good.
Yeah.
It just sounded great, didn't it? A lot of people will still say it is. Here's what we've learned today. Don't anchor your emotion to another person's field of emotion because you're going to go up and down with that. You've got to be persistent. You've got to use the top part of your brain, that part that's rational to think, because you're going to get sucked into this vortex of emotion if you don't. You need to do your homework in your company. Find out what your company does well. You then need to talk with your clients. What do your clients really need? Bring that idea back here, back into your conference room, back into your strategy session. Mold, and make that approach and that product fit them, and look, watch, and talk with the top performers in your company. That's the key. Learn every day because things change. And predictability sometimes is a good thing in life, and sometimes when they see you coming with the same approach as everyone else has, man, it's a turnoff. This is Bill Wooditch. This is Chris Zehnder. Who knows what we'll talk about next week? Thank you for joining us.